This is episode 68 of the Gauntlet Podcast. I'm Rich.
I'm Lowell.
I'm Andrea.
Fantastic. So we have Andrea back and Lowell. Thank you for coming on. It's been a little while since you were like pre-Gen Con times the last time you were on.
That is true. Very, very true.
Yeah, Steve is not on this episode, hasn't been on the last few because he is training at his brand new awesome job. And they had some kind of night type training. So he is still helping out with editing. And I just want to say thank you so much, Steve, for helping out. Jason is unable to join us. He needs to take care of some family matters. And he will be back with us next episode. So let's go ahead and get this sucker started. I'm looking at the list of games. And since we never talk about Dungeon World, I thought, Andrea, you could tell us about this Dungeon World game. What's going on with this Dungeon World?
It's Dungeon World. I don't feel like I need to explain anything more than that. But my tabletop group and I actually created a world using tarot cards because that's something we like to do. And we call it Chrysalis. The theme of it's transformation. It's really gritty and really dark, and pretty much everybody's doomed. What I really liked about this session is two of the players had never played any Powered by the Apocalypse stuff before. Mm-hmm. And I totally converted one of them. Like, he went out and bought the book the next day. I'm super excited for that.
Nice.
Because he's a trad... Like, it's John the roommate, right? He just pretty much plays OSR games. So, that is progress. And then the other one liked kind of elements of it, and he's thinking about pulling some elements into his game. And so I feel like I did a really good job with the game itself. I really enjoyed kind of setting that really dark, heavy tone with the beginning questions with, how did you react when you came back and found your village had been burned to the ground?
Ooh.
Those kinds of really heavy-handed questions.
Nice.
Yeah.
Burning villages to the ground, was it done by...
It was actually done by dwarves, because in our setting, elves have a life cycle in which they turn into trees. So there are these vast sacred groves of trees, and the dwarves, being industrialists and... Well, they have mechs in our setting, because mechs. Mm-hmm. They cut them down because the elf wood actually burns brighter and hotter.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it's pretty dark. I did warn you. Like, orcs in it are actually, like, if you think of samurai warriors from, like, Japanese lore, they're actually these really fey, delicate-like creatures, but no one ever has seen one because they wear these horrific, like, Oni-looking masks. Yeah.
Nice.
They're really cool. So that's our setting. John, the roommate, has run it as a Labyrinth lore campaign, and now I got to run it in Dungeon World. So it was really cool kind of building up that group mythology with our group in a new setting and building, and like we had one player who wasn't familiar with the setting and getting his contributions, and so that was cool. The one thing I really struggled with was the combat, because I set up what I thought was a really cool scene, and then they totally like murder hoboed it. And they're like, we're going to kill them. I'm like, but no, there's more going on. Nope, we're just going to stab everything. And I didn't know how to react to that as a GM and actually try to make it more interesting because they didn't seem interested, and I was so stunned that they totally missed what I thought was a cool cue. So that was a little disappointing, but I still feel like I won.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I wonder if the gritty tone communicated to them differently than you'd intended. Mm-hmm. You have all this death and mayhem that you set up in the initial questioning, and so then when they run into a conflict, they think that's how to react to it.
That had been this, and it was one character in particular, and it was the orc, mm-hmm. and the armor that orcs wear is actually made out of elf wood, but the elves gave themselves willingly, so the orcs would protect their sacred groves. So it's a living, sort of magical, intelligent item. And when it encountered this doll, the armor actually started to pull back away and withdraw into itself and off of his skin, which, of course, has never happened before. But instead of pursuing why it's happening, he just decided to stab everything. And I was like, oh, well, this is disappointing.
What's the group composition like? So you've got an orc, and what are the other sort of playbooks?
I had an orc, I had an elf wizard, which was weird and unique because wizards in this world, if you are born and you have an ounce of magical potential, basically the wizard tower kidnaps you. And they leave a little coin in your crib as a way of saying thank you to the parents. And the parents can use that coin to get one favor from the Wizards Guild. But you as a wizard have no idea who your parents are. And you'll never know because you are a wizard and this is your lot in life. So the fact that there's this elven wizard was actually kind of a terrifying, really unique thing for everybody. And then we had a human paladin who's actually a paladin of the Medusa courts. Because, see, now this is getting complicated. So basically, the entire southern half of the continent has been overrun by the undead. And so to hold them back, the humans actually basically turned to the Medusa. And the Medusas created this wall out of humans. And the humans are still alive, and they can alert the paladins when the undead are approaching. So the Medusas are the only thing holding this continent together. So they have all the power. So he was a paladin of the Medusa court.
So you play a lot of Dark Souls then, is that what I'm hearing here?
I don't know what that is. This was all randomly generated with tarot cards.
Wow. That is dark.
Everything except for the pretty orcs I'm on board with. But
you don't like the pretty orcs? Well, it's the dichotomy. It's the, you put on the mask and you become something else. So nobody knows what orcs actually look like, and that's fun.
That's true. Okay, I can live with that. All right. Well, that is very cool. So you'll be kickstarting this setting pretty soon?
Yeah, something like that.
Fantastic. Well, let's stay on the PBTA train and talk to you, Lowell. I understand you just got back from this GenCon game?
Yes. You may not have heard of it before. It's very exclusive. I ran several games for Games on Demand. I helped with the organization of Games on Demand at Gen Con this year. And they had the 4-hour and the 2-hour slots. And for the 2-hour slots, I did a Fate Core game. And then I offered Threadbare because Stephanie Bryant had put out a demo kit, and I wanted to give that a try. And that ended up getting picked 3 times. So I ran that. And I actually had Phil from Misdirected Mark and from the Gnome Stew books from the Engine Press sat in one of the sessions, so that was kind of neat. It was the first time I'd run Threadbare. I ran it like a couple days before the convention for Sherry and my niece. Then I brought it, and it really worked. It really clicked at the table. People grabbed to the idea. Everything was completely different. It's completely improv based on a few questions at the start. And so each of the sessions were drastically different. One was about being pursued by monster trucks. Another one was about Nazgul babies sent by Mayor Murder Baby, and they were on rocking horses. And then another one was a Barbie chariot race arena that they got caught up in, and it was good. The one of the things that's interesting, though, is it's a 2-hour session, so you really got to go, okay, here are your characters. Here's what you've got. You make a couple picks. Let's get moving. We got a few questions and get rolling. And you learn what you have to teach. Like the first time I ran it, I kind of explained things and I thought I had gotten the stuff, but then in play there were things that I missed or things that players gravitated to. And I think I only got comfortable with actually teaching it by about that final session. I was like, okay, these are the things that people move to, that they're interested in, they're asking about move-wise, and these are the kinds of things they need to know about in play. So that was a really interesting thing to learn, how you learn to teach a game.
Interesting. I got to know, what character did Phil play?
Phil played a softie, and he was an ancient stuffed panda with a little stick. And essentially, he was one of those figures that you buy at a zoo shop that donates to the World Wildlife Fund. So he was kind of slow and dedicated and thoughtful. Nice.
That sounds fun. Anything else about Threadbare? What did you think about Threadbare, the system?
I like it. It's one of the interesting things is it's more explicitly you can't fail. If you roll a 6 or less, you're still getting done what you want to do, but something bad happens. And in this case, it's almost always you lose a part or you damage a part, and then that gives you a hold to bring something forward, to give you a bonus on another kind of action. And it took me a bit to kind of understand that's what was going on, that there is no failure. And that's why we have combat. There's no combat. If you want to fight somebody, you say how you won, and then you describe some damage that you took. And that was interesting. It took me a bit to get a hold of that.
I played Threadbare at Camp Nerdly. It's an interesting game. I especially love that Paul, my good buddy, played a broken Teddy Ruxpin. Whew, goodness.
There is one other thing I want to say, and it's actually a kind of a meta commentary. I had talked to Jason about running at Games on Demand at Gen Con before, and he expressed, and we kind of gone back and forth about the 2-hour sessions and how tight that is.
When you say Jason, which Jason?
Jason Cordova. You're Jason.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
My Jason? I own Jason. Awesome.
You're Jason. You own him. The Gauntlet's Jason. In any case, and he said, 2 hours, that's really tight. We do 2-hour sessions online. I think it's actually easier to do a 2-hour session in person because there's a lot more focus. You can get that rule setup done in just a couple minutes. There's less of the kind of fiddling around, and people know we're here for straight 2 hours. And the interesting thing was I typed up all the numbers for Games on Demand at Gen Con, and I would say a little under 10% of the 4-hour sessions didn't make. They didn't go. They didn't have enough players. They distributed the other players around. Every single one of the 2-hour sessions made. They were packed. And in a number of cases, we had too many people. We just couldn't fill them because we didn't have enough of those 2-hour tables. I think that is going to make me rethink what I offer to run next year. Do more of those 2-hour game options.
Makes a lot of sense for Gen Con, really. Mm-hmm. It's so busy, and giving up 4 hours out of a very packed schedule of the best 4 days in gaming. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Cool. Anything else you want to say about Threadbare?
Nope. Good.
I'm going to talk about masks because I played 4 different games over the last week, and when I think about what games were most exciting to me, Masks was one of them. I do want to talk about a couple aspects of this last game session that I found interesting. Number one is that I've decided that while this is a world where there are superheroes, we've already established there are comic books as well. And the idea of is almost a pop will eat itself kind of approach. There was a moment when Jules' character, her mentor, had said, "Hey, I'm not going to be teaching you, but I'm going to send some ninjas your way." She meets a new hero who was a sidekick, and he hasn't talked about what happened to his hero, that he's going to high school, because this is set in a high school. But the two of them end up running around, and these ninjas show up, and she gets in a fight, and he helps her out, and then she saves him like 3 or 4 times, because she's a PC, and he's just a dude who's kind of heroic and was a sidekick. And the thing that I found hilarious was at the end, he said, "So these ninjas were after you. Is this a thing where you're trying to apply to the ninja clan?" No. They're just out to try to. Well, but they didn't kill you, even though they poisoned you. Are you a lost princess? Like, are you a secret member of this ninja? And of course, I'm just. If you read comic books and you grew up, these would be the assumptions you would make, right?
Awesome.
That's very fun to me. I'm hanging a lampshade on those comic book tropes with comic book characters that are talking about comic book type ideas. It amuses me. Another thing that I did in the game that is something I'm really working on honing as a GM technique is jump cutting. And the moment I found has been a really successful jump cut is bring it to a decision. The first person who said, "Oh, I need a minute," they had a mechanics thing to work out. And there was this pause of like, I want to think through these options. And I said, you know what? I'm going to jump cut. And so we just jump cut right away. And then for the last hour of the game, every time we got to a decision point, I would say, "And you need to do this." Bam, we jump straight over. And then I would go tonally. So someone who's in, like Andrea, if you recall, you were quite harsh towards poor Kid Ragnarok. And so
I don't know what you're talking about.
I have proof. So she slams Kid Ragnarok, and he's got a decision to make about, well, are you going to walk away, or how are you going to handle this guilty condition that's been placed on your character? And bam, we jump into the closet where 2 characters are making out, and they come and ask a question, and then bam, we jump over to the people that are fighting ninjas. And so it was a great way to signal or cue that we were going to jump, and it made sense, right? That's the moment of tension, cutting away from that and then cutting back to it. A lot of people do that. I see that in the commercial break. That's the cliffhanger type ideal. And I really hadn't put two and two together until this last game session that maybe that's the best time to cut, is the moment when you ask the question. Don't ask the question, let them think over it, and then cut away. Just ask the question, then cut right away. That worked pretty well. And the last bit that I wanted to discuss is I'm not very good at planning at all. I'm really bad at it. What I do is I sit down with the intent of planning, and then I get involved in Paint.net because I'm too cheap to buy Paint Shop or Adobe Photoshop or anything like that. And I'd start playing with images while noodling over the game, and I actually created this whole like gymnasium where there's going to be this big fight, and I kind of statted that out and thought through some possibility of custom moves. So I actually did some planning, which was a complete waste of time because I play with people like Andrea. So they took
You're welcome.
They took the session away from me and in fact made their plot. Hey, we need to make sure that we don't go to that gymnasium and have that big fight. It was great. And going with that, rolling with it and realizing that because I didn't start in media res, like you're in the gymnasium, you're having the fight, I gave them that choice, and the choice was to go away from it. Embracing that, I have not laughed that hard at a game session at moments. I have not been so shocked as when certain things were said by Pixie. And Andrea's doing the radio thing of shrugging like she doesn't know. But she totally knows.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm innocent.
So it was a great game session, but it was not at all what I planned. And that improv game mastering allows me to embrace it. It just kind of makes me feel foolish for planning. Like every time I think I should plan, like the old GM Rich should plan. I used to have a ratio of 3-to-1. For every 1 hour of game, I was probably prepping up to 3 hours worth of time of thinking through every possible interaction. This was back in the White Wolf days, and I did so much crazy prep. And now, instead of that frustration level of me as the GM going, they didn't do what I planned, it's more of the frustration level of, why did I waste my time prepping? Why don't I just come in with just a few little ideas, just an index card worth of thoughts? I'm going to throw that out to what do you think about that?
I certainly moved to just straight brainstorming now. Lists of characters, lists of plots, lists of things that could happen without any thought of, okay, I really want to get this to the table, but just literally just brainstorming and having that at the table. But I've made myself over the last 4 or 5 years, I don't do any more than an hour's worth of prep for a game. And even that's me eating and diddling stuff down on a piece of paper before the game session. It ends up actually being more like 30 minutes. And it's mostly just writing goofy shit on a piece of paper. I'll have to show you the Crow's Mantle notes sometime.
Ooh, I'd like to see that.
They're all nut bar things.
Nice. Andrea, what about you?
I am super duper bad at planning. I kind of go, I would like to see this, I would like to see all the characters put in this situation, and then I do it because I'm the GM and you can't stop me. The most effective, because I've actually run some quote-unquote trad games, the most effective strategy that I've seen out there that I've used and really liked is a flowchart. You're just basically like, I want the characters here. These are some possible sort of vague ideas of the methods they could take, but ultimately they need to get back down here. So you have some very vague scene ideas, but it's not that fully fleshed out 3 hours of planning that I think would probably kill me if I tried to do.
Yeah, it would kill me too, but I always have that guilt factor of I should have done more. Yeah, well, that is my mask session, so let's roll back around. Andrea, tell me about Walk With Me. What's this deal?
Ooh, Walk With Me is a micro game that's kind of in draft mode, and it's by Bree Sheldon. It is a 2-player game, which I'm a big fan of because there aren't a lot of those out there, and it's about 2 people just walking their way through the apocalypse. There are absolutely no rules. In fact, she outright says, I'm not including rules with this. You're the one doing the walking, you figure it out. But the whole premise is you start with a number of dice, and every time your character feels lonely, or sad or afraid, you take one of the other player's dice. And at the end of it, when one player loses their last die, then they kill the player with all the dice. So it's pretty cool. It was a public post on her G Plus stream if you follow Bree.
Uh-huh.
Otherwise, hit me up. I can totally hook you up with it. It's a really cool little micro game. I played it with my boyfriend, and one of the really cool things about it was, there was no mechanics. So that was cool. We used tarot cards as scene prompts. There's a theme tonight, apparently, with tarot cards.
Mm-hmm.
So we used tarot cards as scene prompts, and then we just sort of freeformed it up until a point where one of us kind of felt upset about whatever thing, and then we would take another's die. The thing that I really thought was cool was that it wasn't like the shapeless, mutated beasts that roamed the wastes or the way other survivors treated our characters that usually made my character feel bad. It was the way the other character treated me, especially when it came to light my character was pregnant.
Oh.
And then it was this, I call it white knight syndrome. It was, no, I have to protect you. I know you think that you know what's good for you, but you really don't.
Oh.
Let me tell you and let me do everything for you. And that so completely alienated my character that there was one scene where we were arguing about whether or not I should go to safety and leave him out to the wastes to die, or if I should go out with him. And that whole scene, that was the whole thing. But you're pregnant. Like, I'm some sort of invalid because I'm pregnant suddenly and can't make my own decisions. So I kept taking his dice away from him. And because he wasn't paying attention, he didn't even know I was doing it. Which was really cool, because all of a sudden, at the end of it, he went to take a die from me. And he was like, I don't have any dice left. And I'm like, nope. I think
nice.
That means you win? It's that part's a little weird. It's hard to wrap my mind around it, because they survive, because clearly the other character dies, which in traditional games means they're the winner, but it means they've completely lost themselves, that they've lost their soul, and that's why they snap and kill the other character. So that was a really cool story. I was really excited we got to tell it. I really want to try it again with somewhat tighter mechanics, because we weren't really sure how we wanted to play the game, because you roll dice, but it doesn't say how many or when, so it was just sort of let's do this thing and see how this works. So we really want to try it again.
Neat.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought experiment. That sounds like it could almost be a 200-word RPG.
Almost.
Cool. Anything else you want to say about Walk With Me?
Nope.
Lowell, I kind of queued you up with some Supers RPGing.
Yeah.
I understand that you've been playing a Supers RPG as well.
Well, and I actually, here's the place where I have to make an exception to what I said about the earlier prep. So I'm running Mutants and Masterminds 3rd edition, so heavy trad. I ran, with the same group, I ran a couple of years worth of Mutants and Masterminds online. And, we're doing it in Roll20. We have maps, we have tokens, all of that kind of craziness. It's very trad, but I've been trying to bring other things into it. In that we spent a session and we did Microscope to build the world, because this takes up a campaign later in the same world, about 18 months. So we built the history of the time in between. And that was striking, because I kind of pitched them that they'd run essentially year one style characters for the first campaign. Like they did Mr. Freeze and Mr. Miracle and Thor, and so they were all year one characters. So for this one, I said, I want you to do kind of legacy style characters like Teen Titans or Young Justice or whatever. The Microscope session, and it got dark. I mean, like Andrea level, screwing the world up, blowing up stations. They've got the Soviet Union has this whole neo-Soviet supers that have taken over, and there's a world war, and the economy has collapsed, and Dr. Doom is the president of the United States, and all of this just... And that wasn't kind of what I was picturing for the campaign, but okay, that's what we're going to go with. But then the other thing I did was I took all the masks stuff, and I said to them, okay, you guys have met before, you guys have come together as a group, and I walked through all of those mask questions on how you group first met. And then I had all the questions from the archetypes for masks, and I kind of said, okay, well, I think this player is closest to this archetype. And so I asked those questions in the character creation session, and I really liked that. They dug it. And then this last session was, we had a classic fight, but at the start of it, I spent about an hour just asking PBTA-style relationship and lifestyle questions. And they really enjoyed that. I've been trying to bring that in to kind of mix it up. I mean, I run, investigation story games in the Mutants Masterminds, but I'm trying to bring more of those elements in. And it's helped take the edge off the fact that Mutants and Masterminds is hella complicated in some ways.
Yeah, it's not quite Champions, but it's a D20 base, right? Still with 3rd edition?
It's D20 base with 3rd edition, but here's the thing. They've moved to much more of a Champions effects-based definitions for powers. So instead of buying like, okay, I have fire control, you go, well, I have to buy damage, and then I have to buy control element, and I've got to buy all the bits and pieces, which is good for being able to do everything, but it means that some players come in with the idea, okay, I'm going to do Iron Fist. One of the players said, I'm going to do Iron Fist. I have to figure out how I want to do the fist. It's going to be really cool, martial artsy stuff. And another player came in and said, okay, I want to have move object as a power, and I want to have blast as a power, and I want to have this as a power. No, not the big overarching concept of the character, but what powers they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, the way that Champions and Mutants and Masterminds works, that's a viable approach, but it doesn't give us a lot to work with at the table.
Yeah. Not a lot of flavor.
No, but it's a decent game. It's probably my favorite of the harder superhero games, and we'll see how it goes with this new 3rd edition. I like Roll20. We've had this conversation before, but I think it works. I've been playing with the video part of it, and that seems more stable than it used to be. Mind you, I'm not like measuring distances. It's just a map, and I move tokens around, and they look pretty. And I say, yeah, you can move over there. Oh, no, you can move over there. Whatever. That's what I want.
Nice. Speaking of masks and Roll20, I just want to drop a quick note, and we'll put this in the show notes. Matt, who is one of the big fans of masks, has created an entire suite for masks play over Roll20. He has a little intro video in case you want to use that campaign and get a tutorial on all of the bits he's done. It is amazing. He has all of the playbooks, including the experimental playbooks, the playtest ones. You can drop in your character, have the moves show up. There's even some custom die rolling stuff going on. Using the masks font is so pretty. Matt did a fantastic job. Really, really cool.
I hope that encourages some other people to build more of the PBTA tools for Roll20, because it's a decent setup, even if you're not doing anything fancy. I mean, I run Worldwide Wrestling using it, and there's actually audio tracks for wrestling background noise. And I think it's a useful tool. So it's very cool to see people doing that kind of development.
Well, it's something I'm going to have to go to. Google is, again, moving away from things I like, which is okay. That's their want. But it was announced today that as of September 12th, 2016, the Hangouts on Air will no longer be available. You'll have to do YouTube Live. Now, I haven't actually used YouTube Live, but it looks like it doesn't run apps, which means we will no longer have Dice Stream. So we're going to have to go to Roll20 if we want to be able to roll dice. So,
Yep.
Another hit for Roll20. So there you go.
I'm glad that Google works backwards with their development, because when Google Plus first came out, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yep. We'll just let that go. Hurt. I wanted to share with you guys that I have played John Wick's Cat. First of all, I did not realize how few people do that there was a game called Cat, the RPG, by John Wick. In fact, one person asked me if that was a joke about the sequel to the movie John Wick, where in this one, his cat was killed. So I thought that was an interesting reaction. Cat is a game from 2004, originally released 2004. It was nominated for the Indie RPG Awards for the most innovative, as well as the Game of the Year. It was runner-up for both. There was a revised version in 2011, and that's the version that I purchased. That was also part of his big book of little games, but it was released separately. Very inexpensive little game, as most of John Wick's PDF games are you play domesticated cats in modern day who protect their humans from scary monsters that only the cats can see. That is the pitch. It is a fantastic little game in 40-some pages. That's including character sheet and a lot of kind of cat-related fluff for the last third of the book, stuff that was added in the revised.
Fluff, I see what you did there.
Thank you. Yes, I occasionally would talk about catastrophes and...
You are a dad.
The dad jokes were strong with me that game. It was part of the Gauntlet City Limits. Lucky enough to have John and Pam and River, all three fantastic players who every time they sign up for my games, I squeeze just a little bit. It makes me happy. The magic system for this game is super cool. So the things that cats can do, aside from you have stats which are parts of your cat's body, and then you have reputations which will add to those body parts. So let's say you have your eyes. It'll be at a rating of 3 to 5. That's the number of 6-sided dice that you roll. And if you have a reputation of, very sharp vision, or keen, then you can add in whatever that reputation worth of dice is. You can also negotiate for the possibility of some advantage dice, which are situational and is a John Wick game, ultimately up to the GM whether or not that is acceptable or not. I'm cool with that. It's okay. John likes strong GM presence in his games.
Mm-hmm.
So you look for evens, and you roll, and the target numbers are 1 success, 2 success, or 3 successes. So if you're building die pools of 6 or more dice, you can do a whole lot of stuff. That was one thing that I need a little bit more time with. I felt like I should be setting some higher difficulties when they were doing some crazy stuff. That was one of the things that I thought was just a little bit odd. Another thing that's interesting about the game doesn't necessarily have a mechanical impact, but you have the name that the humans call you. You have the name that other cats call you. And then he based this off of some kind of fantasy cat literature that there is also a secret name. And that secret name, if someone knows your secret name, they can actually do magic against you. And boggans are the enemies that you fight. And if a boggin takes your secret name, you need to go find another name. Otherwise, you're kind of screwed.
That's in Tad Williams' stuff, the Tail Chaser song.
Yeah, I think that's a common theme in a couple of different fantasy things.
And of course, the musical Cats.
Really?
Has that as
musical Cats. Okay. Did not know that.
Which is based on a series of poems.
Let me share with you one of the spells from Cat. The Dinner Dance Ritual. The Dinner Dance Ritual, some precocious cats call this the DDR, is a favorite of Tom's and requires little preparation. All you need to do is walk around a human 3 times and he'll grant a single request. The request must have to do with something about fulfilling a basic need, like bring me food or give me shelter.
That is so cute.
I know. Yeah. One more. I love this one. Door slip. A cat must have a strong tail, which means you have to have a high rating in your tail statistic to perform the door slip trick. It allows a cat to slip by a locked door. It requires a small sacrifice, like a rat, a mouse, or a rabbit, to be placed before the door. Once the ritual is complete, the cat slips by the door as if it were open. That's what I found fascinating about this game. I'm not a cat person, but the magic and some of the antics of this game, John knows cats. It's obvious that he has studied cats and then came up with ways to work in those odd cat behaviors into or mechanize the game that way. Really clever. River, John, and Pam all knew cats very, very well. Their portrayals were so spot on. They were the highlights of the game. The one thing I would say that from a perspective, if I had this to do over again, has nothing to do with them. I had difficulty getting the game kind of ramped up. I didn't necessarily lay down the premise as strongly. Mm-hmm. They didn't have the book. It's really on me as the game master or the narrator in the parlance of this game, to lay out, hey, you guys should be protecting your humans from boggans or evil spirits and the like. I really just gave them free play to see what personalities, and I talked a little bit about their relationships as cats. But so it was a little loose. I really should tighten that up. If I had it to do over again, I think I would have come a little stronger with kind of here's the theme of the game, because I could tell there's a little bit of hesitation with the players. Once they got to it, they were fantastic. So a little bit on me as far as how I would suggest someone else run Cat for the first time.
It's interesting. On a related kind of game, Renee Knipe was running a game called Beasts of Burden at Gen Con. I really wanted to have a chance to play, but I didn't get to. And that's based on a comic book series where it's a group of pets, a group of animals, and essentially they're kind of like, they take care of supernatural threats to their town. And it's a pack of dogs and cats and stuff. And that looked very cool in a more sort of dog and cats X-Files-y or Monster of the Week kind of way, which I like that concept too.
It is a cool concept.
Yeah, definitely.
But you really don't like cats, Rich. So how did you come to decide that you would run Cat?
My buddy Chris Norwood, way back in the day when Cat first came out, told me over and over, Rich, this is a great game, and I know you're not much on cats, but you would really find this interesting and you would like it. So this is me telling Norwood I gave it a shot, and as long as I have players who totally dig into it, I can have a good time talking about cats, licking themselves, and jumping onto trees and doing cat things. I did get to play a dog, which was fun.
Of course you did.
Okay.
Yes. Jubei, the retriever puppy, was awesome. But he wasn't as awesome as the PCs who were cats. So there. Everyone loves cats. Are you happy, Steve? Last bit that I thought was funny was as we took a break, one of the first breaks, John looked at me and he said, so which game came first, this one or One Percenter? And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, the same guy made this, right?
Oh.
What, huh? They're totally different. He says, well, they're not really that different, Rich. He's like, One Percenter, you have a biker, he has fists, he has jaw, he has feet, and they all have to do with things you do with that part of your body. Cat, you have claws, you have coat. I'm like, whoa. I didn't even, because the theme of the game is so radically different, but there's a basic core premise of where you get your original dice that are very, very similar. I thought that was an interesting thing. I'm like, guess there's nothing new under the sun.
Neat.
Yeah. Everybody, let us go on and talk about what's giving us life. Giving me life.
Wasn't sure where I should jump in there, Rich.
Lowell, what's giving you life?
What is giving me life? So I have been waiting all year excitedly for the new edition of my favorite JRPG to come out. It's going to make me buy the PlayStation 4 because we don't have one. Persona 5. So excited. Sherry and I are just on it. And so it got pushed back to next year. And I was a little PO'd. So we went back and we went to replay one of the previous Personas that we had. It had come out with another version for the PlayStation Vita, which we didn't have, but we bought one of those little PlayStation TV things that was super cheap, and you can hook it up to your TV, and it plays the Vita games. Persona 4 Golden is a remake of Persona 4 with a bunch of added content, new dungeons, new monsters, new interactions and things. We played it all the way through, and then we immediately started playing it again. Like, the day we finished it, we started the new Game Plus. And we've sunk about 140 hours into it. It's such a good game. It is so good. I love the characters in it. I love the fact that you get more powerful by building friendships with the other characters. You're recruiting sort of versions of your persona for your main character, and in order to get better ones, you have to build these social links with like 20 different characters. And that requires going and spending time with them. It requires having discussions with them, helping them out. And it's set in a kind of a rural Japanese town, and there's a murder mystery, and it is just so good. I can't get over how much I'm enjoying it. And enjoying playing it immediately again, the same scenes.
Wow.
I love Persona. Flat out love it. Love all the Shin Megami Tensei games, but the Persona stuff is just dynamite.
Really cool. I'm going to say that New Girl is giving me a life. New Girl is a TV show. I watched it primarily on Netflix until I got to the 5th season, and then I had to switch over and purchase it episode by episode. It is a sitcom-y kind of thing, except it's a multiple camera format, and there's no canned laughter, thank God. What I love about it most is things that were proven in 5th season. So in 5th season, New Girl, which is Zooey Deschanel's kind of thing, this was her deal, right? You know, she was the big star that came to television to do this thing. She was absent for half of the entire season. She was not the New Girl because she was on jury duty. That was the excuse.
Mm-hmm.
Megan Fox was brought on to sublet her apartment during the time. There's like 4, sometimes 5 people, all guys, and Zooey Deschanel, and this time it was Megan's character. They all are in this one giant apartment, and she just took over that room for the period of time when New Girl was in jury duty, and they didn't miss a beat. They were able to kind of reintroduce some of the same humor of, you know, a bunch of guys and a wise woman who tells them how stupid they are, but occasionally gets mixed in her own kind of plots. And also Damon Wayans Jr., who looks so much like his dad and really has a lot of the same delivery and style of comedy. His character was absent for a lot of the season as well, and they brought him back. There was a wedding at the end of the 5th season. What's great about the show is that it's generally not too wacky, but occasionally there are aspects that feel realistic about particular characters that are really off the wall, but they're off the wall in the way of, like, I've got a friend who's just that weird. And there's this amazingly well-written aspect of the show where it's almost like Orange is the New Black. In Orange is the New Black, you meet a character and you're like, I hate this character. This character is terrible. And then you see a flashback and you're like, oh my gosh, that character is the saddest character ever. I feel awful for having hated that character. How dare you play on my expectations to make me hate them because they're so stereotypically hateable. Now I love them. Don't hurt them ever again. New Girl's comedy is like, let's lead in with that trope of the joke that you know is coming, and then they twist it, and it goes from, oh, we're all gonna laugh at this thing, to, holy crap, I'm really emotionally involved in this moment now. How did you do that to me? I don't want to be invested in this person's drama. And then they let you go with it. Like, they don't go super maudlin. They kind of tail it off in a nice, humorous way. I've never seen a show quite like New Girl. And I'm going way on too much for it. But I've 5 seasons. I did mainline it. I did 22 episodes in the last few weeks. So it's a little heavy on my brain.
Yeah, I was going to say, I only managed to get through the first season and a half of that before it wasn't grabbing me. But it was also, I was on a week-to-week thing, so that may make a difference. Yeah,
there are just certain characters that I really grew to like. Winston is fantastic. He's just so weird, and he really doesn't grow into his character for a while. And Jess, Zoe's character, her awkwardness just appeals to me. Not in a, like, I like her. I find her amusing how she occasionally sings nervously. It just tickles me. Andrea, what's giving you life?
I have been finally watching season 9 of Doctor Who because I am constantly behind the curve on things. I don't want to alienate Gauntlet listeners by saying why I'm watching Doctor Who, but I will say my favorite part of watching Doctor Who is talking about it with people who have watched Doctor Who. There's that community discussion of, this is what I liked, this is what I didn't like, this is what I thought was so exciting and I want to see them do more of. And I can't wait for this to happen again, and I can't wait for this character to come back. So I really love sort of that community and that excitement and enthusiasm for Doctor Who that, well, I'm an excited person anyway, clearly.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just sort of like looking in the mirror and it's bounced back at me and it makes me really happy.
Which season is 9?
9 is Peter Capaldi.
Okay.
And stuff happens that I don't want to talk about. I'm sure I'm literally the last person on Earth who hasn't seen season 9.
I watched all the way up to that season and I have not yet watched it.
Yeah, it was people kept telling me it's good. You have to watch it. And I'm like, like, it takes me a while to get used to a new Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Then pretty soon I'm quoting them and I'm like, oh, I really do like this Doctor. So I finally started watching it and I've pretty much been doing an episode a day, which for me is a lot of TV. So it's pretty cool.
Yes.
I like it.
Yeah.
Dr. Hume is my great shame. My sister, who's a few years younger than I, she is not a geek at all.
Mm-hmm.
And out of nowhere, she became the biggest Doctor Who fan. And this could have been that one connection we could have about a geeky thing. And I tried. I tried to like Doctor Who. It's just not for me. It's just not for me. The unflappable hero doesn't appeal in the slightest. It just doesn't.
I will say Doctor Who is very similar to like Star Trek Voyager, where they're really playing a long game with the character and the characterization. Yes, I'm a Star Trek Voyager fan, shoot me. But there's a lot of very subtle character moments that you kind of have to watch for, and it also depends who's writing it.
I will say I grew up, they used to broadcast full, sort of all the episodes of a particular arc of Doctor Who out of Chicago late night on Sunday nights at like 11 or 12 p.m. So it would go until like 1, 2 in the morning when they had Tom Baker was on. And as a kid, that was like, I would stay up to watch those. I'd watch Monty Python before it, and the two Ronnies on this shitty static-filled picture trying to get the signal out of channel 11 to pick it up. And, oh man, I loved it. Yeah, just absolutely loved it. Read the crappy British Target books. And
Mm-hmm. It's really cool to talk to people about Doctor Who because everybody identifies with a different Doctor, and it's usually the first Doctor you started watching and you really got hooked on the show with. So for me, surprise, surprise, it's the really dark Doctor. It's the Ninth Doctor, Christopher Eccleston, the sort of Ninth Doctor. I have issues with the movie. I'm just going to put that out there. But
right.
So for me, like, Christopher Eccleston is amazing, and I love him, but he's not a popular Doctor. So it's really fun talking to other fans about Doctor Who and what they like and what they don't like and what appeals to them. And it's really cool. And it makes me really happy to have that really enthusiastic, really friendly fan base that you can just talk and geek out to Doctor Who about.
Can I swing this back around to RPGs? Have you played the Doctor Who RPG?
I haven't actually played it. We made up characters. We were basically... Okay. I'm kind of blushing because this is sort of embarrassing because this is like the epitome of
If you say slash fic, I'm gonna be.
It was the Regeneration Squad. It was a bunch of Doctor Who villains that had to go hunt down the Doctor because they were being made to do it or their heads would explode.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes. So yes, we've combined Doctor Who and the Suicide Squad. We just never got to play.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, exactly. That is really too bad.
Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of The Gauntlet. If you would like to play games with us, please head to, first of all, find us on Google Plus for as long as that exists. We have a community. You can search for Gauntlet and find us, the Gauntlet RPG community. Or, even smarter, because we pay the bills for it, it is still around. The Gauntlet-RPG website is the best place to find us. Otherwise, we have a meetup, which is linked in the community as well as the website. We have a little magazine that you can download free of charge called Codex, which has some cool Dungeon Worldy, Urban Shadowsy type stuff that you should check out. Some neat art. We have other podcasts along with the Gauntlet, Plus One Forward, Pocket Size Play, and Discern Realities. Please do check those out. Rate and review us. We would very much appreciate that. And there's also some Twitters. We have the @Gauntlet-RPG, Gauntlet RPG, so you can check us out on the Twitters as well. But I would say, really, if you want to communicate, come join the community. As long as it exists, that's always the best place to find a bunch of very good-natured and wonderful gamer people to hang out with. Thank you so much for coming on, Lowell.
Oh, no, thank you for having me.
And how can people find you, Lowell?
So they can go to my Age of Ravens blog. That's probably the best place. And then I also co-host Play on Target, the Play on Target podcast.
And thank you so much, Andrea. How can people find you?
I am at ivorythorns.tumblr.com. Or, on G+, as long as that exists.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Yay.
We are so snarky.
Thank you so much, listeners. Cue that back up again, because I'm not sure if you can hear the toilet flushing, but just in case, I think maybe I don't want to worry about that being in my intro. Thank you so much, listeners. Have a great time. Have a great day. Have a great morning. Have a great afternoon. Have a great life. But come back.
You can edit that as you wish.
I know. I just thought I'd do them all.
Yeah.
Because I'm editing, so I can make it betterer.